Thanks, everyone. And thanks for staying for the last session of the day, which is actually a really interesting one as well. Given global events, I think food security is one of the biggest challenges that the world faces and is a very underreported crisis really facing the world. So I'm delighted that we've been able to include it on the agenda. And I'm delighted also to hand over to my colleague Kunduz, who will be taking us forward with this panel. So Kunduz, over to you and your panel.
Good morning and good afternoon to all participants who are joining us today in person here in Incheon and also remotely. I also welcome our speakers who are representing different segments of private sector. As Scott already mentioned, today is the second session in the last 4 days of the event that focuses on food security and human well-being. This emphasizes the importance of the agriculture and food systems and the importance of food security both in terms of nationally and globally for livelihoods of more than 85% of the world's rural population and also for the economic growth, especially in the developing countries where the agriculture and food systems contribution to the national GDP is considerable. With the finite natural resources and growing population, the sector faces challenges to feed the growing population while reducing its environmental and carbon footprint. In addition to this, the sector is also exposed to multiple shocks. Latest events are showing that these shocks can be such as COVID-19 related disruptions, increase in cases of pests and disease, and climate change events. Increase in climate change events is particularly challenging for developing countries, where agriculture is primarily rain-fed and where adaptive capacities are limited. Green Climate Fund supports the transformation of agriculture and food systems towards resilient and carbon neutral pathway guided by its private sector strategy, which supports acceleration of innovation for business models, financial instruments, and climate technologies. While the fund's Agriculture and Food Security Guide provides guidance on how to promote a paradigm shift in the sector through 3 main investment pathways. Our first session on the same topic, which was delivered on Wednesday, focused on the Agriculture and Food Security Guide and also on our support to transform the sector towards a resilient and carbon neutral pathway through public sector investments. While the session today will focus on the private sector support to building the resilient and carbon neutral agriculture and food systems. Today, I'm joined by 4 speakers, which include Mr. Malik Ngaye, who is Director of the Agriculture Bank of Senegal, by Mr. Robert Chasmari, CEO of the Carbon Pollution Reduction Scheme Exchange, Mr. Tamir El Rahi, Managing Director of Human Resilient Agriculture Bank, and Dr. Bhaskar Reddy, who is Senior Advisor of the Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture. Each of our speakers will share their unique experience in supporting agriculture value chain actors. Before inviting the speakers to share their unique experiences, I would like to remind the participants who are joining the session online and also in person are invited to submit their comments and questions through the Voava app. Our first speaker is Mr. Tamir El-Ragi, who will share the Arab's experience in building resilience of smallholder farmers in East and West Africa through blended finance and investing in agribusinesses. He will also discuss importance of financial de-risking instruments of GCF in this challenging journey. Mr. El-Ragi, floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Kunduz, and thanks GCF for inviting us to be part of this event, and thanks to my fellow panelists. It's a great pleasure to be part of such a fine panel. That's not fine. Okay.
We have the wrong slide. Amalia, could you please help?
That's okay. At least I can use this as an excuse. Okay, here we go. I'm Tamir El-Ragi. I'm the Managing Director of the Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund, ARF. We are based out of Nairobi and we have a small team in Lagos. Our fund is an impact agri VC fund where we invest in early stage agri startups with business models that help farmers adapt to climate change. And we invest mainly in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, and Ghana. We are a $58 million fund that's sponsored by Acumen and anchored by the Green Climate Fund. Well, I think we cannot overstate how crucial the support we got from the Green Climate Fund was for us to establish this fund and be able to raise the rest of the money. Because basically, as a first-time fund manager, as you can imagine, it's challenging. Yeah, at that time, 4 years ago, we were talking about climate resilience and climate adaptation for farmers. Not a very popular subject. Having GCF providing a first loss layer helped us go out in the market and raise $33 million more from senior investors like FMO, Proparco, Soros Development Fund, and family offices. We invest usually our ticket size is 300,000 to 4 million. So we are usually part of the pre-seed, seed, and Series A rounds. So far, we are, as a young fund, we only started deploying in 2020, and so far we have invested in 7 companies with operations in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Nigeria, and Ghana. Our fund structure is a good example of blended finance, where the first layer was GCF's first loss. And then for Acumen, our sponsor, to become an LP, Acumen is an NGO. Our fund is for profit, so Acumen had to go and raise grant money from IKEA Foundation to become an LP. We used those $25 million in the first loss to go out and raise another $33 million. In addition, we raised $5 million for the technical assistance facility, which we use to support our portfolio companies' activities, such as measuring our impact, which we'll talk about in details, supporting our portfolio companies' business development activities, and last but not least, definitely support their efforts training farmers. Let me introduce the team to you. That's our team. We're 6 investment officers, 5 in Nairobi and 1 in Lagos, in Lagos. Our team, our team is basically, we are 5 Africans, and the only expat, she's been in Kenya for 10 years. So she's as local as they come. You can tell, very young, world-class talent, local, that we are very proud that we are preparing to, lead funds to come. Our portfolio companies, they range. People always ask us which crops we focus on, which value chains, and we always say we are very we're very sub-sector agnostic. We are not focused on certain crops. We're not focused on certain value chains. You'll find that we have tomato paste producers, we have a producer, we have a solar powered irrigation company, we have chicken company, we have horticulture. So long as the business model helps those farmers become more resilient to climate change, we consider investing in them. So that's the first, layer, climate adaptation. The second one, that business model has to be commercially viable and scalable, because we always wear two equal lenses: the financial or economic return and the impact return. The first company that I'd like to talk to you about, it's part of our portfolio. It's called Sun Culture. It started in Kenya. Now their product is sold in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Zambia, and recently Togo and Ivory Coast. The company develops and distributes solar-powered irrigation systems that help smallholder farmers not only have access to clean water and sustainable and reliable source of clean water for their crops, which resulted in an average of 3x increase in their yield, but also more clean water for their cows. On the average, they reported 50% increase in their milk yield. But also now farmers don't have to count on the rain season. They can actually go cash crops multiple seasons. Since we invested in the company in 2020, the company grew by more than 3x. The company was actually able to impact 20,000 farmers, which is equivalent to 100,000 people. We will talk about more of the impact of the overall portfolio later, but this picture is of two fields. Now, this is not staged. Two brothers, one of them decided to buy an irrigation system, solar-powered irrigation system. The other one decided to count on rain. And those are the maize fields of the two brothers. You can tell the difference, I think, as they say, enough said. The one on the left with irrigation will get or got maize. The other one on the right, unfortunately, counting on rain with drought in Kenya earlier this year, it did not help. The second company I want to talk about, which is a totally different business model, and it doesn't come to people's mind usually when we talk about climate adaptation. This one's called Uzima Chicken. Started as Ethio Chicken in Ethiopia. Uzima Chicken is a sister company in Rwanda and Uganda. And the third venture now is getting into Kenya, Ghana, Mozambique, Malawi, and Ivory Coast. The company provides dual-purpose poultry day-old chick together with feed for backyard chicken, basically, where the farmer, she or he can actually sell the eggs during the year, and then at the end of the year, sell the chicken for the meat. So it's a special kind of breed that lays eggs and builds meat at the same time. That's why it's called dual purpose. Since we invested in the company back in 2020, revenues grew by 2.4x. The company actually impacted more than 2 million people in those 2 years. Amazing penetration. And at the same time, those farmers reported 2 to 4x increase in their income from their backyard chicken. And at the same time, when you look at the long-term effect, this is a company that's helping farmers increase their income and reduce their income volatility. So now farmers, they have daily/weekly source of income instead of the seasonal source of income. Since we invested, our portfolio has, for every dollar we invested, co-financing resulted in 4.3x co-financing for every dollar, $4.3. Growth in equity, in revenues in our portfolio has been about 2.7x in our portfolio in 2 years. Keep in mind that some companies have been only in our portfolio for a year, and employment has increased more than 35% in our portfolio companies. Our TA has been crucial to our portfolio companies. So far, we raised $5 million, and we thought that they should last for the lifetime of the fund, the 10 years. After 2 years, we already spent $1 million on 38 projects covering business development, like hiring consultants, helping companies establish ERP systems. We help them with farmers training, and of course, lean data surveys to measure the impact. Measuring impact. The first survey we run is a typical livelihood survey on those farmers, impact on their livelihoods, income, yield, quality of life, etc. And of course, the first thing we measure, of course, is how many farmers we impacted throughout our portfolio. And till last quarter, our portfolio companies impacted about 600,000 farmers. That's equivalent to 3 million people. In addition to that survey, we run another survey for the climate resilience, to measure the climate resilience of those farmers. And please, we welcome feedback, how we measure and what we measure, because we started like with a blank slate and we didn't really know what we should be measuring. But we developed that toolkit supported by the generous funding from GCF to start by measuring 3 things. The first one, their access to enablers. Like, do they know about climate change? Most farmers, they say that when a climate event happens, they pray, okay? The second layer is their ability to absorb, and absorbing a climate event, you know, we check things like, do they have access to insurance? Do they have savings, etc. And the third layer is their ability to adapt. And adapting, we ask about their practices, regenerative agriculture, tillage, etc. We ask about their water management, about trees they grow, about what kind of fertilizers, etc. And then we come up with scores for each category and a score for overall score for the portfolio. And right now, about 43% of our farmers are resilient. The rest are not resilient. The rest are vulnerable. That's massive, guys. So we need to do more. Thank you. And if you have any questions, more than happy to answer. And just for heads up, I'm really sorry that I'll have to leave at 5 because I need to catch my flight. So thanks, Kunduz, and my fellow panelists for allowing me to go first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. El-Wagni. Because he has to catch flight, he will be leaving earlier. That's why if there is questions from the audience, we will allow to be flexible and ask these questions already now. Please let us know. Otherwise, we can switch to the second speaker. I believe that the participants were not ready for this change, so we will collect the questions to Mr. El-Wagni later on, and we will move with the second speaker. Our second speaker is Mr. Malik Ngaya. He is the director of the Agriculture Bank of Senegal, which is our relatively new direct access entity. He is here today with us to share the bank's experience in partnering with the international accredited entity in developing and offering tailored and inclusive financial solutions to smallholder farmers who are investing in solar power-based pump irrigation. Without further ado, Mr. Ngaya, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you, GCF, for this opportunity to share our experience in terms of what we are doing to address risk and food security in our country. Thank you very much. And this topic is very important for Senegal. My country is a West African country, is a very small country, less than 300,000 kilometers and about 17 million for population. The topic is very important, and talking on food security at this time, you know that the context is very, very particular, very specific, because of the face COVID-19, and we know that we have some matters in terms of access to fertilizer. This is a main point we face. We know that also international price is very, very expensive, and transportation is very, very difficult for some countries in West Africa. And in this context, you know that our government and all the actors who are working on the agriculture are very occupied to do all the best to be able to increase production, because in my country, La Banque Agricole is the main actors, and our job is to support farmers association, farmers, small farmers along the all the value chain, agriculture value chain, to be able to access to finance and to be able to get all their need in terms of seeds, in terms of fertilizers, and to be able to do what they are expecting in terms of production, for example, grains, particularly rice in the North region. And the context of 2020, 2022 is very specific, very complicated, because we have the war between Russia and Ukraine, and this is also a good impact in the very, very big impact in terms of access to foods and access to oil, access to fertilizer. And that's why the government has increased the budget affected to support small farmers and all the products in Senegal. And this is very, very important. That's why we, in our strategy, we do all the best to discuss with all the actors and to be able to address all the constraints we have in terms of access to better conditions. In this context, that requires more sustainable and resilient food system. And it is very important to know that we do not have self-sufficiency in food. And this is a big challenge for Senegal, and the government has a big target to mobilize all the actors, farmers association, financiers, and technical assistant, suppliers. All the community are mobilized to be able to increase production, and to be able to create the condition, appropriate condition for food security and food processing to be promoted in our country. It is also a very big challenge in our country. What is our job? What is the issue of and challenges to promote resilient and how carbon production system? In this slide, you see two parts. In the left, you have a guy who's is a first producer of banana, is in Senegal, and he has made a very, very important job last 10 years with us. We give him 1.2 billion CFA to address irrigation system, to be able to get also a cableway, this system to do harvest in a good conditions, making that the banana is very, very in a quality. And at this time, we are quasi exactly almost to be sufficient in banana in Senegal, and we continue to support this and all the value chain. At the left, at the right, you have Wamalmbe is a new product which we promote 2 months only, because we have a partnership, very good partnership with USA Trade Up, is partners with in the Accra in Ghana, and we have signed agreement loan around $6 billion, and this is a co-financing model, because we bring $2 billion, and they support us for $3 million and $1 million is for subsidies and to support the technical assistant for us and for NADB is a local provider solar system in irrigation, connected irrigation. It's very, very interesting system. We have designed it a free kit for kit irrigation system for 1 hectare, 2 hectare, and 3 hectares. And depending on the farmers, they can do the choice to bring them 1 kit, for example, and the bank give them loan in the at least in medium term for 3 years or until 5 years, and to permit them to be able to have a footprint carbon, very good footprint carbon, and to be able to not face actually the increasing price in oil. For example, they use oil to make irrigation. This is a good model we promote in this. At the same time, we linked with the insurance, agricultural insurance, to cover some risk like embezzlement and also some risk we face in the. This is very, very, very specific and very new model. We try to share to bring and to ends, because it's very important for us to tackle and to solve the matter of energy in agriculture. We use also at this time lots of energy in human energy in agriculture. This is not very, very profitable. And in the perspective and actions and framework, we are in our table promoting what we call partnership, open partnership, because we have, for example, with GGI. GGI is a global growth growing institute based here in Sondo, near GCF office. And we are in partner till we begin to be accredited entity. And we share a big project in the River Valley in Senegal on supporting by Qatari Fund for $3 million. And we are on the solar system pump, very, very indicated for this this area, because they are in the rice area, and irrigation area is very important. And also for greening the bank, we have implemented with in Greenfield, led by FIDA, IFAD. It is very important to know that IFAD has approval project for $115 million for a sub-regional project with the Grand Mirai Vert. And this is a specific project in. It is very, very big project, sub-regional, concerns Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Ghana, and it is very, very important. We are going on next month, maybe, to be able to use the money to in terms of impact for the small farmers and all the actors, particularly for women and those who are around along the Grand Mirai Vert. Also, we have in our strategy, we think that the question of the feeding people population in the world is also a question. It concerns all the countries. That's why we are in the alliance of the public and public bank, public and development bank. We are a member of the alliance, and we try to work at the international level to be all our best in terms of how we can make appropriate system, food system at an international level to be able to be sure that we will be feed correctly the humanity and the population. And this is also something that we want to emphasize, because we are IFAD with Agence Française de Développement and other partners from South America. At least all these public bank and the agricultural bank are doing today lots of efforts in terms of mobilizing financing resources to address food security and to make appropriate global feeding for the humanity. Also, we have discussion with Global Adaptation Center. We have LOE, and we have right now signed an agreement to collaborate. What we're looking for is to get from GCA appropriate technical assistant, and we think that we have to do something with this international actors, because they are properly oriented on adaptation, and we think that adaptation is very important for us to be involved in our portfolio to get lots of projects in adaptation path. And also, we think that it is very important to implement lots of and strengths strategy of climate. We are designing right now our strategy and climate finance. It's sure that we have accredited from DCF, but until now we have just introduced one concept note, which is involved in PPF. But we are not receiving money. We are expecting to receive that next year, maybe. And what we want is to, at the same time, and parallelly, to be able to mobilize in our strategy partnership lots of financing to be able to design and to deliver some project in Senegal, like we discussed with African Development Bank. We are discussing also with the other partners like Agence Française de Développement and GTZ, etc., etc. And this is what we are doing in our country, and we are really committed to do the job, and we know that we have some opportunities, even if we have to do the best to be able to mobilize partnership around this question. Is a question very important around in terms of how we can feed our population, how we can not to be dependent for the country. For example, in India, I'm joking with my colleague here before we come here. Don't limit exportation of rice from India, because we have lots of need on rice in Senegal. We love rice, but we don't produce enough rice in our country. This is a challenge, and I think that we'll be able next coming years to be self-sufficient in food and as a system security. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and also emphasizing once again the vulnerability of the sector from multiple shocks, at the same time importance of the sector for the food security and livelihoods of the citizens in Senegal. It's very good to hear the experience of the bank in partnering with financial institutions as well as with providers of technical assistance in order to bring inclusive and innovative financial products. It's also very good to hear that Senegalese Agricultural Bank is working on adopting its climate strategy and developing green finance rules. It's very inspiring experience for which we thank you. We also thank once again, Mr. El Rahi for sharing the experience in working in the field with smallholder farmers and giving last mile hand holdings to them for ensuring that the farmers will get some benefits, will have more adaptive capacities or coping capacities with multiple shocks. I understand that you have to leave now to catch the flight, but we would like to thank you and give applause for your participation today. Now I'm pleased to introduce again the third speaker, Robert Shatsmani, who is going to present his experience with bringing innovative solutions applied to land use change area, including carbon sequestration and forestry rights pool, use of de-risking funding, and catalyzing technologies, education, and skills development. Today, he has also another mission, which is presenting his experience within the allocated time slot, which, as he said, is a big challenge given the complex nature of the land use scene. Without further ado, Mr. Shatsmani, let the challenge begin. Floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Kunduz, for taking up the challenge. I've never been able to present our project in 10 minutes, so that is the challenge. And thank you to the GCF for this opportunity. Now, we started in 2007 to develop a project which we expected would take about 5 to 10 years to put into place. It happened in Manila in the Philippines. The Philippines is the focus of our work. And in the Philippines, we made arrangements with one family who had a large property of 59,000 hectares in the northern part of the Philippines. All we wanted to do was a small business of developing a forestry project, creating a sequestration project and selling emission units or carbon permits. They came down to Manila to meet with me, the family of 12 who owned this property, followed by another 159 families who were also told about what we were doing by this one family. And by the end of the day, we had created what was called the Carbon Sequestration Forestry Rights Pool, encompassing around about 800,000 hectares where they put their properties into our project, allowing us to develop a RED+ forestry project for creating a major carbon sequestration project and to sell emission reduction units. In the process, we learned as we met with these people and visited them because they were in faraway provinces, we discovered that the human well-being became more important than making money. And we developed since 2007 until 2015 numerous collaborations and partnerships with industries and manufacturers of greenhouses and other engineering products, because we had planned to build greenhouses and isolate the production of food from the rest of the environment. We did this by forming relationships with formal indigenous groups who were given land grants in the Philippines. And the first one that we worked with had over 200,000 hectares of land. So we found that we could catalyze all the issues that you see on the board: carbon sequestration, reforestation. And the reason we can catalyze reforestation is because those farmers who live in the poorer regions on the Philippines, in the provinces, and indigenous people have small farms to sustain their own families, and any leftover products they might sell in the local market. However, what we did was develop arrangements in Netherlands to create special greenhouses, and all these small-scale farmers would move their farms into the greenhouses and grow products and become employed producing food. So then we were left with their lands to detoxify the soil and remove all the fertilizer and chemical pesticides that they've used over the years to degrade the soil. We then formed relationships with pyrolysis plant machine manufacturers to manufacture biochar, which is the product that we would use to detoxify and regenerate the farmland soil for planting more trees. In the Philippines, they have a tree planting program where they want to plant 35 million trees, but of course the costs are exorbitant. So we hope to be the ones to be doing that for them. Our projects meet all the requirements of the Philippines climate change action plans and priorities. Pyrolysis, biochar manufacturing, and soil remediation is important because as we move the open air farms into enclosed greenhouses, we then have the opportunity to remediate the soils and produce more RED+ projects to generate revenue for the Indigenous people and the rural poor. Our protected food production strategy is based on the notion that we do move small scale farms into these special greenhouses, which I'll tell you about shortly. And then the farmers will be working in the greenhouses and they'll be trained via the Wageningen University in Delphi, Netherlands, who will come to the Philippines to transfer their educational courses, skills and knowledge to the closest universities and agricultural schools to train our farmers in a manner where we hope to increase food productivity. The yields will be far greater than the Philippines have ever experienced before, and there'll be more harvest per year because all food will be grown in a high-tech environment that is locking out the external environment so they're not affected by crop losses, which is a serious problem in the Philippines. Education and skills development is important, otherwise there's no way that we could train them in modern technology and modern growing systems. For example, we won't be using soil to grow food products inside the greenhouses. We're using tailored mediums or growing mediums that are also manufactured specifically for the food products. The local economical development will progress greatly because we'll be able to offer opportunities to equal opportunities for employment and also education. It's very common in the Philippines, particularly in the poorer provinces, that children might finish school after elementary school and start working on the farms. So now we hope that they will be going back to school as their mothers and dads and adults in their family groups can gain employment. The carbon sequestration forestry rights pool is innovative in that it transfers small-scale farms into the BOM Group CPRSX greenhouse. Now, BOM Group are one of the world's oldest greenhouse manufacturers. They've been manufacturing greenhouses since the late 60s, and many of them still stand. So their technology today is very advanced. And the way they plan to build the greenhouses in the Philippines for us on these lands, the ancestral domain, is to pre-cut them in Netherlands, put them into containers, ship them across to the Philippines, bring across their senior engineers who will train Filipinos to assemble the pre-cut greenhouses. So now we provide employment for numerous, probably men, I don't think many women will be climbing up the ladders to assemble greenhouses, to build the greenhouses, of which we want to build 6 greenhouses at 5 hectares each. Each greenhouse will have a small section that's an educational section where students who will now enter into agricultural studies at the local colleges and universities will be able to practice and experiment. The planting of seedlings to transform redundant farmlands into RED projects is hoped that in the long term, over the next 10 years, will lead to the planting of over 35 million trees for sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere. So human well-being in the Philippines will be enhanced, 1, through better quality air, 2, through equal employment opportunities and wider scale for Indigenous people who primarily are marginalized from commerce in the Philippines and need to look after themselves. So they're not earning a lot of money. They are below the poverty line, and we expect to raise them out of that rather rapidly. And we expect that we will probably be employing over 11,000 Indigenous people in the coming years as we start to develop the greenhouses and plant seedlings throughout. The emissions trading for sustainable revenue streams is what we hope will finance and fund the balance of the greenhouses that we would like to build across the Philippines, because we would like to turn that into a food manufacturing nation. The revenue will obviously help in relation to employment, social and economic development, food security, and human well-being. It's not uncommon that for a lady who needs to give birth can't make it to a hospital because there are not many. So in those regions, in these isolated regions, we hope that this will help to develop the economy and raise their standards. De-risk funding for protected food production projects was an important consideration when we developed this plan. And the whole idea was to start off with one RED Plus project that generates carbon permits that can be sold on the emissions trading market. So the first 139,000 hectare property, over a 30-year period, it's forecast, and this was done independently by professionals from Canada who came to the Philippines. It will sequester over 6,700,000 and I can't read it, 86 tons. So it'll offset 226,000 tons annually, but over a 14-year period, it will generate a revenue of 14.9 million euros based on the current price at 66 euros. So once we have these projects underway, the funding for the balance of the greenhouses will come automatically through emission reduction sales. And on that basis, we are funded privately by mainly Australian investors and farmers who saw the logic in forming an adaptive or climate change adaptation process where the farmers move away from using pesticides and chemicals to grow food and yet still can't achieve the proper nutritional level. We all realize in our group, and there are over 64 of us, that private funding is important, but we also need public funding. One of the reasons why we turn to the Green Climate Fund, and of course, some of the major banks, and they are looking at our propositions. So once we reach the stage where we're able to reactivate this 139,000 hectares as a RED Plus project, at that point, our plan is to also go for a public listing on the stock market once the greenhouses are producing food. And that way we feel will be self-funding for the next 30 years and managed by Indigenous people in the Philippines. These are opportunities that Filipinos have never had before. They're so far removed from the commercial centers of the Philippines, they often don't even know that they exist. Most of them survive by growing their own foods on their own properties and supporting their own families. And sometimes they will trade amongst themselves. Children rarely get to go to school in these areas. So now we know that once we do our plans and the money starts coming in from the revenue from emission reduction units or carbon permits, the government will start building schools in other areas. And of course, the standards of the families will raise to new heights. So their well-being is our primary concern. You'll see up there are a number of little logos for the Wageningen University, Carino State University, Delphi. They are the main educational institutions, and Wageningen is in Netherlands, so is Delphi, and they will train the Carino State University to deliver their courses on agricultural production. Coppert Industries is also in the Netherlands, and they produce growing mediums, but they also do more. They produce bumblebees. Bumblebees are packed into boxes and they're grown inside labs. So these bumblebees, as they're put into boxes, which is around about as wide as this pontoon, what do you call this platform here, and about this high, and it is their hive. And each greenhouse has one of these hives in there. So they're sent from the Netherlands. And bumblebees don't fly as far as ordinary bees, nor do they have the colony collapse disorder diseases that we're experiencing worldwide. So the bees will be living inside the greenhouses and they will be our pollinators. So this is a new form of technology. In the Philippines, they have their own bees, but they have colony collapse disorder as we experience in many countries throughout the world. And this is the best and purest form of protecting the bees so that they don't have diseases. A lot of them caused by pesticides and chemicals that are used on open air farms. Pyrolysis for biochar production. Pyrolysis is a process by which you heat up organic matter such as grass clippings or even dead animals. And it produces a charcoal, which is called biochar, but it's heated in a chamber without producing any carbon, and it's not burned, it's only heated. And that is what's added into the soil on the redundant farmlands so that we can detoxify the soil. And of course, it prevents pesticides and chemicals from seeping into the waterways and harming marine life as well. So these are features of our projects. But what is interesting is that the annual food production forecast is 23.5 tonnes for 8 food types, but the annual revenue is there at $38 million. So this is something the Philippines doesn't experience easily because they suffer from crop losses through floods and typhoons. And therefore, in summary, carbon sequestration is the answer to fund our long-term plans, which goes over a 30-year period. We have had independent Canadian specialists come and prepare a feasibility study for our first RED Plus forestry project, and it passed very nicely. We've also had financial accounts prepared, forecast for 30 years in advance, and they showed that at the end of 30 years, these projects will have made over $226 million just from the 139,000 hectares. Here is a surprise. CPRSX has close to 4 million hectares signed up into our carbon sequestration forestry rights pool throughout the Philippines. That means that we are definitely in the process of looking for collaborators, partners to work with us, because this is bigger than we ever envisaged. We never planned to do something so large, but news of CPRSX in the Philippines spread after we opened our first office in 2013. And we engaged a team that we call our Filipino management team, and we traveled throughout the Philippines to all the provinces. We dealt with all the indigenous tribes who have been given land grants, and most of them are rather large, from 20,000 hectares upwards, and they all wanted to join us. The other important aspect of our project that leads to enhancing human well-being is that every government agency in the Philippines, from the presidential office down to the Food and Agricultural Organization, the agricultural agencies, the Department of Environment, Natural Resources, Climate Change Commission, local councils, municipal councils, they all support everything we're doing. So we are 100% supported, and we have never, since 2007, had any person, any agency, authority or administrator say, you need to change your plans, it's wrong, it doesn't work, or it's bad. In fact, they all support us completely. So we are now ready to move forward. And having said that, I thank you for your time, and I hope that some of you might take the time to visit our website, where we have pictures and much more information about what we are doing in the Philippines. Because to get started, we estimate that we only need to raise $20 million. And we've had those discussions this morning with the Green Climate Fund, and we've also had discussions overseas with some of their accredited banks. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sasmaria, for sharing your foundation's experience in addressing the root causes of the deforestation, and also explaining that to address this challenge, it's very critical not only to bring de-risking financial incentive measures, but also to accompany it with supporting the farmers with technological and technical solutions. It was also great to hear that in your work you focus on the needs of women and indigenous people. Apologies. With that, I will be happy to introduce again the next speaker, Mr. Bhaskar Reddy. Apologies. Mr. Bhaskar Reddy will discuss the role of last mile delivery in delivering innovations and to achieve climate adaptation at scale. He will also share with us challenges faced in delivering innovations and addressing gaps. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Kunduz, and thank you, GCF, for inviting Syngenta Foundation to this session and this conference. Syngenta Foundation is based in Basel, Switzerland, and the primary objective of the foundation is to improve the income of the smallholder farmers in few countries in Asia and Africa. We work in 4 countries in Asia, India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, China, and also Mekong region. In Africa, we work in Kenya, Senegal, Nigeria, and Mali, and a couple of other projects in different countries. Couple of caveats. One, we are not we're a kind of a different hybrid organization. We don't, although we are a foundation, we are not, we just focus on giving philanthropy or doles to smallholder farmers. We try and build business models which are sustainable, and I'll explain some of those business models through the presentation. So based on the work that we have been doing for the last 20+ years, kind of playbook that we developed for sustainable agriculture and climate adaptation is based on 2 large pillars. One is climate smart innovations. In the current context, especially the innovations would include technologies, services, and practices. And of course, they have to be delivered. That's the combination, the innovations and the delivery mechanism. So that will lead to the improved incomes, climate resilience, and women empowerment, and so on. And of course, both the climate innovations and the delivery are underpinned by the access to capital. And without access to finance to smallholder farmers, it's extremely important to deliver those innovations and the technologies. So if you look at this, on the delivery side, there's been a major challenge with each company or each organization trying to develop a siloed approach in trying to deliver their technologies. So it's like a car manufacturer trying to build roads for their own for cars to move in. Similarly, agri input companies trying to develop their own channels, irrigation companies trying to do their own channels, and so on. So this is highly suboptimal, and I think it's time we need a kind of a development highway, is what we call it, as an which is done in a partnership mode with multiple partners, all of them coming together to develop that development highway. On the same highway, we could deliver all the technologies and climate innovations to smallholder farmers at scale. In the traditional channels, which are they're all siloed, limited approach, limited reach, highly inefficient, I spoke about. But in this kind of a development highway, we're talking of developing hyper-local entrepreneurs at village level, and who act as a one-stop shop for delivering multiple services to smallholder farmers. The transaction costs are very low because multiple organizations are using the same channel, the development highway, to deliver their services. And the integrated offer to a farmer, the farmer need not go to different companies or organizations for multiple services and so on. It's about leveraging the power of partnerships. So this is on the delivery side. And how exactly does this happen at a village level? We're calling this as an agri-entrepreneurship model. We go into the villages, look for unemployed rural youth, and we kind of test them and we select them after multiple filters, applying multiple filters. And then we train them on entrepreneurship and the local agriculture knowledge, local crops. And then we set them up as an entrepreneur in their own village. So each entrepreneur works with about 100 to 500 farmers, depending on the local geography, and caters to the services required in that village. And these entrepreneurs are connected to the entire ecosystem, banks, financial institutions for getting loans to set up the enterprise, to various industry partners to get the products and technologies and services so that they can deliver them to farmers. The key thing is that since these entrepreneurs are hyper-local entrepreneurs, they have a trust with the farmers. They also set up demonstration farms to deliver new technologies. Delivering new technologies which are climate, which can be climate adaptive and climate mitigant, they can reduce mitigation, is much different from the standalone mainstream technologies like seeds or chemicals. There's a lot of capacity building that has to be done, for the farmers to adopt those technologies, and they have to be demonstrated. And so it's a complete business in a box kind of an offer that we offer for the entrepreneurs, right from selection, going to the training and setting up the enterprise. And critical component here is a mentoring part. For every 35 to 40 entrepreneurs, we have a graduate in agriculture mentoring these entrepreneurs for a 2-year time frame. So the last 8 years, we have developed about 12,000 entrepreneurs in 8 countries, and they're reaching close to 2 million farmers. So through these 2 million farmers, we're delivering a lot of new innovations and climate smart technologies. So if you look at the work that the foundation has been doing on the innovation side, you'll find that the work of the foundation can be broadly classified under 5 categories: resilient agriculture services, which includes the last mile delivery models and digital tools for entrepreneurs; research for development, which includes developing drought tolerant maize varieties to improve wheat varieties through international partnerships, more like demand breeding. And then we have the whole spectrum of climate smart resilient agriculture innovations, which are tested through our own in-house platforms. These include new mulching technologies, which could help plants conserve water during droughts, or biofertilizers, which also improve the soil and also improve the soil moisture. So those kind of climate smart innovations are delivered. And then we have resilient financial solutions, where Foundation was one of the earliest organizations in sub-Saharan Africa to develop a parametric insurance solutions. And in Asia, we have credit scoring tools for farmers and entrepreneurs and first loss guarantees. And lastly, the entrepreneur capacity building programs, which include farmer trainings and the whole content there. And like I said in the beginning, it's not about a foundation developing these innovations, but we also take it to a logical conclusion of developing them into Syngenta Foundation flagships, which are like a for-profit or a not-for-profit entities. So we have Agri Entrepreneur Growth Foundation, which is a not-for-profit entity in India. And then we have Farm Force, which have divested, which is a digital tool a digital tool for agriculture. And then we have Seeds to Be program in Africa, and we are now working on a new for-profit entity called Evergreen Impact Tech Platform, jointly with partners from Israel, to bring in climate smart innovations to smallholder farmers. Acre is in a for-profit entity in Kenya. It's called Agriculture Climate Risk Enterprise. And lastly, we are looking at developing an Agri Entrepreneur Global Academy, jointly with IFC and other partners, to take the entrepreneurship in agriculture to scale. So the key thing about going for climate adaptation at scale is to layer in some of these innovations that we have developed in-house onto the development highway, and also look for partners who can bring in innovations to this development highway. And this highway itself could be developed in a multi-stakeholder partnerships way, where the foundation is looking at developing certain number of entrepreneurs, while large number of entrepreneurs will be developed in partnerships with the local organizations in various countries. So what we are looking at now is very initial stages of developing something like a climate coalition agriculture for 100 million smallholder farmers over the next 10 years. And this, like I said, the key thing in the climate coalition is to develop build the development highway which can deliver those innovations to the 100 million smallholder farmers, embed climate resilience right from seed to the markets, from soil to markets. Look at building up various support systems for the climate adaptation, climate resilience, looking like entrepreneur academies, grades, coding tools, first-class guarantees, and so on. And looking at a blended finance approach to leverage at least 5 to 10 times that of grants that we could raise. So, I mean, I'll not go much into this indicative structure, but the idea is to have a very strong technical advisory committee, which on the right-hand side, we act as a technical assistance to the left-hand side, where climate resilient programs could be developed for 50,000 to 100,000 farmers, and there could be independent SPVs, which could then draw capital finance from the Climate Coalition Fund that could be developed. And just like a couple of concluding points from a GCF point of view, we feel that GCF should prioritize projects that are integrated and encompass end-to-end initiatives aimed at building climate resilience rather than looking at standalone initiatives. I mean, standalone initiatives like funding a solar irrigation projects is good, but if those solar irrigation projects are then supported by partners who can link farmers to markets and bring in access to capital, working capital, and so on, that will be much better. That the second point obviously flows from the first one. So organizations implementing GCF projects should look at building coalitions by onboarding partners and who could bring in other complementary skills. And lastly, I think it's extremely important to design projects at scale, because we have close to 500 million smallholder farmers who need to be climate resilient in the next decade. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reddy. This is once again another example where we one more time hear that partnership is critical, and stronger hand-holding to the farmers in terms of climate smart technologies, awareness raising, dissemination of technologies, and also helping to finance those technologies are very critical. We are also glad that you have several suggestions based on the experience of the Syngenta Foundation to GCF in terms of how to scale up successful experience in building the resilience of farmers. Now, I will open the floor for the questions and answer sessions. We are already seeing some questions from the remotely participating participants. But if there are participants on site with questions, please feel free to raise your hand to any of the speakers, and we will account. While waiting, I will start the comments from the virtual participants. First question is to Mr. Zakarian. If you could explain whether there are any plans to ensure that Philippines can manufacture greenhouse facilities locally. And there is another question, again, for you, which is on how many carbon permits or emission reduction units can your project create each year? Floor is yours.
Hello. Oh, I don't have to turn this on. It's automatic. The first question, sorry, just remind me, what was the topic? The first one?
The first question was whether there is any plan for the Philippines to manufacture greenhouse facilities locally.
That is to be decided by the BOM group in the Netherlands. At the moment, there are no plans to manufacture them in the Philippines, but we do have plans to manufacture the pyrolysis machinery and also the atmospheric water generating machinery in the Philippines. And in relation to greenhouse manufacturing, that is going to be entirely up to BOM Group in Netherlands because they own the technology and the systems. I suspect that they would love to manufacture in the Philippines because we have asked this question at times, but we never got a direct answer. We have to wait and see. The second one was how many permits each year. On the 139,000 hectare project, the first one, that produces, I think it was over 266,000 per year for 139,000 hectares. But of course, we want to develop the other RED Plus projects as well. So next door to the 139,000 hectare property is one that's 10,000 owned by the AITA and another, and that's one of the indigenous groups, and another almost 200,000 by the Bukkolot. So they are the first three projects that we'll start with.
Thank you so much. Is there a question from the audience to Mr. Shatkari? Please feel free to raise your questions. Yes, I see one hand raised over there. Please, could you introduce yourself and
thank you.
Then ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Awatif Abdelgadir from Sudan, Higher Council of Natural Resources. I have a question about the criteria of choosing the country where the foundation extend its activities. Is it initiation or application from the country, or is it completely the foundation can choose the country where it can apply its activities? Thank you.
Yeah. I think we've been operating in a few countries for the last 20 years, like some of the countries that I mentioned, but we also undertake projects or programs jointly with some of the partners, depending on the request depending on the request. So in fact, we're also looking at some of the insurance programs in Sudan. So it depends on on what kind of projects that the partners are interested in, and then accordingly, we choose to go to the new countries.
Thank you. We also have several questions to Dr. Reddy. Maybe I will start from those questions first. Since there are multiple questions, I will ask one by one. The first question is, according to Syngenta Foundation, how the ideal project looks like for agri-entrepreneurship?
The agri-entrepreneurship works best when we develop entrepreneurs in clusters. So ideally, for each entrepreneur mentor who manages about 35 to 40 entrepreneurs, that's an ideal cluster. And preferably, we should at least have a project where we are able to have 100 to 150 entrepreneurs, so that we are having a reach of around 5 to 10,000 farmers. And this also gives us the economies of scale to deliver inputs or do the market offtake agreements for various partners. So ideally, we should look at a cluster of 100 to 150 entrepreneurs and about a reach of anywhere about 5 to 10,000 farmers.
Thank you. The next question is also from the virtual participants. The question is Sri Lanka in your scope as an eligible focus country, at least in the future? Dr. Reddy, this question is also for you. Is Sri Lanka is an eligible country or focus country, at least in the future, for the Syngenta Foundation?
Yeah, like I said, like I answered previously, the foundation primarily works with smallholder farmers in Asia and Africa as of now. And if there's a request from any partners in Sri Lanka, I mean, we could support them. And in fact, one of the ideas of trying to develop a global agri-entrepreneur academy is to reach out to places where the foundation is not present. So by developing a global agri-entrepreneur academy, then we will be in a position to pass on the entire business in a box solutions, common operating systems, and methodologies to develop entrepreneurs to partners in the local in different countries. So once the global AE academy is developed, we have a request from say a country like Sri Lanka with a particular partner requesting for an entrepreneurship program. Then the global AE academy will support that local partner in setting up entrepreneurship programs in that country.
Thank you so much. There is one more question for Syngenta Foundation, and it's about the call in early 2022 on climate smart agriculture. It notes that smallholder adoption of the climate smart agriculture practices is very low. Was this based on personal experience of the Syngenta Foundation, and whether smallholder level farmers see sufficient private returns to adoption of the climate smart agriculture technologies?
I think there is enough economic case for adoption of climate smart technologies in some instances, in many instances, so that the farmers' economy, the income can increase. For instance, one of the technologies which I mentioned was Thalia trays for mulching in orchards. For orchards, technically, there are no technologies which are around mulching, and this particular technology helps plants tolerate high temperatures and provides the right kind of a root zone temperatures to plant to improve the yields and income of the farmers. There is an economic case for many of the climate smart technologies, but the challenge is multifold. One, the technology has to be demonstrated to the farmers for them to see the benefits, and two, there has to be an access to technology at a local level for them to buy the technology. And three, which is very critical, is access to finance. And that's the reason why we said, we should look at a climate coalition which addresses all the elements in entirety rather than just looking at one element. And so, yeah, there is definitely a business case for smallholder farmers to adopt climate smart innovations.
Thank you so much. And we also have one question from the audience. Please, could you introduce yourself?
Yes,
and ask your question?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, thank you for the nice presentation. My name is Sumaya Abdoum from Sudan, from Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. Very nice presentations, and I am asking about the carbon sequestration project in Philippines. I think it had been done by intensive afforestation program for carbon sequestration purposes, and communities are maybe fully engaged in the project, and they can have access to carbon markets, so receipts or any kind of carbon mechanism. Is it they really have access to benefit from selling their carbon, or through regular markets or CDM or any mechanism? Also, asking about you maybe develop forest monitoring system so as to detect the progress in the increasing of forest cover for sequestration purposes. Asking about the benefit sharing mechanism that should enable communities to have access to these benefits and to share costs and benefits, and they can have the access to these global carbon markets. Thank you so much.
This question was to Mr. Shatmari. Do I understand correctly? Okay. Would you like to take the podium? Okay, unfortunately, there is some technical issue and the mic doesn't transmit the voice very clearly. If you could please pass your question in writing or try to keep the mic very close and repeat. Thank you.
Okay, okay. This is okay, you can hear me? You can
yeah,
hear me?
Yes, if you could.
Yes,
speak,
yes, yes,
slowly,
okay, okay,
and-
yes.
Thank you.
I will concrete on one question is that have the communities engaged in the project or the beneficiaries within the project really have access to global carbon markets to gain benefits from carbon selling that they are fixed within the carbon sequestration activities like planting or forestry and so on. This is my main question. Thank you.
Yes, everybody has access to the global carbon markets. Yes, we do have access to the carbon markets. I have to clarify, I still could not understand from the speakers here because they're not that good.
I suggest
Perhaps
that
you could do it in writing offline, or I could meet with you later, but this is not clear for me.
I support the suggestion. Maybe we could follow up through bilateral meeting after the closure of the session. So it might be better. Thank you so much. And we apologize for this. And the last question is to Mr. Ngaya. In your view, in order to scale up your current efforts in helping the smallholder farmers, what barriers you foresee and how to overcome those barriers?
Thank you very much. I think that it is very easy to understand how we work. La Banque Agricole, names LBA, is focused on financing small farmers. Our job is daily to look at how we can finance agriculture, livestock, fishing, in terms of giving them money. But the question is it's not easy to give money to population when they are not well prepared. I think that the approach is on the valuation financing approach is to prepare the farmers, all the actors to be able to use money in the good conditions and to be able to pay back the money after the end of the campaign. This is very critical. That's why we are, for example, with Syngenta Foundation in Senegal. We are in partnership for example, in one country, one village named Point Gendarme. Syngenta Foundation is an entrepreneur, is our partner, and we share to give building capacity for this organization to be able to get money, loan money, a very long-term loan, for example, to get equipment, heavy equipment, to be able, for example, to work on the fields. And this is one example, but it is the same approach for all the value chain agriculture in Senegal. But in our context, sometimes you have the population in rural area are not illiteracy. They do not take financial data. They have lacks of access to information market and so on and so on. And you may be able to show that if you give money to this person, they will be able to use correctly and to be able to, if not, you'll be face a very big problems in terms of non-performant loan. And this is a critical point for agricultural bank in our context, in our countries. That's why what we are trying to do is more to be on advice and after to give money. It is very important for our situation to be able to prepare properly all the farmers, small farmers. When you want, for example, to give them money for equipment, for example, and you need to get perspective in terms of how many years they have to pay, and you are at the same time sure that for each year you will be able to give them money for short-term money for example, to be able to, when they need to use their equipment, their motor pump for irrigation and so on and so. And at the same time, we build a model in terms of integrated financing system, means that we don't only finance the producer, the small farmers. We also try to look at along the value chain, at what time is the harvest and what we can do to finance for the aggregator, for example, for industry, for food processing. And we do contracts between the farmers and the food processor and the aggregator. It is a model, and when we push a lot, and it is very interesting. At the same time, we promote insurance agriculture. We have a insurance company in Senegal, and we use this possibility to cover our risk in terms of climate risk. And we have some developing a portfolio on this aspect, and this is very interesting to shame, and we think that we can add, and all we are expecting with GCF to be able to mobilize lots of money in the terms of concessional resources, because the interest rate is so very critical in our context. Normally we bring money to the enterprises around 10% or 11-12% a year. But for farmers, we have a specific interest rate subsidized by the government. And the interest we apply is 7.5 per year for each farmers, when the loan is a destination on only increasing production, only for that. But for the other actors, they have to pay normal classic and interest rate based on the market. This is what I can respond for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have several more questions, but being mindful of the time, we cannot ask those questions today, but we will be forwarding those questions to each speaker for follow-up. Again, we are running out of the time, and given that some participants are going to leave today and have flights to catch, we have to finalize the session, and to summarize our key takeaways. Within the key takeaways, I would like to highlight 3 points, major points. Number one is that the role of the private sector and private sector finance in building resilient agriculture and food system is very critical, and there is untapped potential for increasing the private sector engagement and finance in this area. The second takeaway is that innovative financial solutions are very critical, but they have to be hand in hand with innovative technical and technological solutions for the farmers to generate benefits and to increase their resilience. I also noted that private sector participants are recognizing the importance of partnership. We heard about a partnership with financial institutions, academic institutions, technical assistance, service providers, among others. And although I said 3, I will add one more, which is inclusivity. So high emphasis on beneficiaries who are disadvantaged and those who are with less access to benefits, like female beneficiaries and indigenous people, are very critical. With that, I would like to, on the behalf of organizers of this event, thank our speakers and participants today. We will wish safe travel to participants who are living today and enjoyable stay to those who are staying here. And once again, many thanks to our speakers. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Kunduz, to you and your panel. It's a really interesting topic and a great way to round off what has been a very interesting and illuminating couple of days with some very weighty and very meaty topics to get into. So I would also just like to add my thanks to everyone who participated in the sessions and also to everyone watching online who took part too.